Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Behind the Book Live. I tell you what, off stage, man, we got a book today that actually is going to help you win deals. I'm telling you right off the bat. Got my man here, Casey, in the house. What's up, buddy?
Richard with the Shark. That was the band. Were you playing drums or guitar?
Dude, that's like the little intro, man. Red carpet for you, man, being an author. Seriously, anybody that's on my show that's an author, man, I give them props, man, because it takes a lot of grit, time with your family and stuff like that to get that book done and the thoughts.
It was not an easy task, and I did it to prove that football players can't put sentences together.
That's right, because you were a football player, correct?
You're making me go Uncle Rico for Napoleon Dynamite out of the gate. I did. I played quarterback in college a long time ago, back in the mid-'90s.
Man, love it, man. So I'll tell you what, before we even start, man, give me the 2-minute tour of Casey, man. What you're about, brother.
I am a dad, husband, father of two great kids. My son Ryder is going off to college in the fall, which I can't believe. My daughter's a scrappy little point guard, shooting guard in high school basketball, and my wife, 7th grade sweetheart, married 25 years. And but I'm 20-year corporate guy, 25-year corporate guy that literally have found my calling. I never thought I'd be coaching. I mean, I coach kids, I coach sports, but now I'm literally, the cliche about, if you find something you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. I don't feel like I'm working. I love what I'm doing. I'm giving away like years of experience, years of failure, and I get to see other people succeed, and it's the best feeling in the world. Dude,
I got to tell you, seriously, isn't that the best feeling? I know when we win, we love it, but when somebody else wins, I'm going to tell you straight up, man, it's a better feeling.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing I enjoy most about the journey I'm on is when I get to work with people as a speaker or a coach or whatever it may be. I'm not guessing. I'm not saying, hey, try this, see if it works. Mm-hmm. It's let me tell you why that will work, and here's 3 examples of where I failed, or here's 3 examples where I succeeded, or because I think coaching and this journey I'm on, it's just about asking really, really good questions, which probably will lead to what salespeople or leaders can take out of this is when you ask really great questions, you unlock so many new conversations, thoughts, tracks. And so if I had to summarize 3 words who I am, though, it'd be and constantly working on being my curious self, my humble self, and my vulnerable self.
Dude, the humble's a key word, brother. Okay, man. So let's jump into this. So the exciting part, let's go back a little bit to the K-Force days, man, because I read that in your book a little bit. So give us you spent a lot of time there. You were like rocking it out there, but it just didn't happen that way. How did you build all that up there to be one of the best, at K-Force?
Well, I started at a company called Hall Kenyon back in 2000. K-Force bought Hall Kenyon in June of 2004. And one of the very first things I remember sitting across from Dave Dunkel and my very first President's Club trip, I said, "Who's the number one guy? Who's the number one girl? Who is it?" I wanted to know because I was the number one person at Hall Kenyon. And he said, "It's that person over there." And I remember, okay. And that person was doing a lot more than I was. And so I'm very competitive. I'm very focused. I was surrounded by some fantastic leaders and teammates that helped me do it. And so, I mean, my journey at K4 started with one reference check at a very, very large cellular company. Starts with the letter A. And I worked with them for 18 years. We, and I think just staying in a growth mindset, staying in a mindset of there's always a better way to do it. Yeah, I'm having success, but how else can I get better? How can I keep sharpening my sword? And I think that being able to be coached comes from my days of playing college football. For those that played football, we played on Saturdays. I might have a great game. We'd watch film on Sundays. But if I was, 27 of 35 for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, well, that sounds like a great game. But the 8 incompletions I had, we're going to get coached on those hard and watch that play multiple times. So I think that mindset of just being coachable and seeking feedback, because I never really helped me because I was the number one guy for 10 straight years. And I didn't want to ever be the person who was like, "Oh, Jacox, oh yeah, what an a-hole. He's so," I wanted to be the one that like, "Oh, that's him." But he's nice and he treats people well. And he's not a dick.
You could say it, man. It's live. Yeah.
He's not a dick. He's just, wow. And so those type of moments really inspired me because it was just fun to create moments of, hey, no quarterback can throw the ball to himself. You need a center, you need a line, you need defense, you need receivers, and so just like in staffing, I needed a great recruiting team. I needed a great ops team. I needed a great billing team, and thankfully I was surrounded by a lot of really, really good people that probably made me look better than I was.
You know what, 100%. And I love the football analogy because I coached football for 10 years as a head coach. So I know the ins and outs. And you know what? Throw it out there. My favorite player, Tom Brady. Did you ever see him brag about himself? After they win a game, he's always talking about the other players. You notice that? Like,
Yep.
he always says, even though he won 7 Super Bowls, I didn't win 7. My team won 7 with me, And that's what I love about sales. So the big thing is, Case, so what made you just go? I mean, you're rocking it out there. What made you just go on your own?
It was hard. I had as silly as it sounds, a voice in my head.
Yeah.
It just kept speaking to me. And I was like, what is, and then I had a client one day that said, man, Case, when I talk to you, it's different. When I talk to you, go change the world. Her name was Andrea. And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And then she sent me a t-shirt on my birthday one day. She was a very talented design executive. And she sent me this t-shirt that said, Navigating the Enterprise, written by Casey Jacox. I said, what's this? She goes, that's the book I want you to write, which I haven't done yet. And God love her, I would never wear that t-shirt because it made me look like a massive egomaniac. But the shirt, I still have the shirt. I love it.
Love it.
But it just finally got to a point where I just, and I had 19 amazing years there, almost 20 amazing years there. And, my favorite part about exiting was I left on great terms. And I think I just kind of outgrew my role and the opportunities there. And then it just became like, it was like a great divorce. And I think when I knew that I wanted to, so I took some time off, got my mind right. I wrote the book, started a podcast, and then I just started networking. And, we were smart. We saved in our 20s and 30s so that I gave myself the opportunity to kind of go out on my own. I never knew I'd be doing this. Like I said earlier, but it is my calling, man. And I think a lot of it goes back to the word behind me. You got to believe in yourself.
100%, man.
And you got to believe what you do matters, which I give so much love to a guy named John Kaplan, who taught me so much about that word.
Is there a time before we jump into the book where you, like, after you resigned, you're like, maybe I'll go with another staffing firm and maybe I'll go somewhere else? Or did you know you were like, this is the time for me to make it happen myself?
Never say never. I feel like where I was at, I knew I wanted a new challenge. I knew, it's kind of like, I use a pilot example. It's kind of like if I was a pilot and I started with Cessnas, single engine and twin engine. Now I'm flying 747s from Seattle to Australia. Like, I'm not going to go back to flying Cessnas from, freaking Naples to Miami. Like, I want to lift weights with people who are stronger than me. I want to run the track with people who are faster. I want to be around people. And so now, it's just, I'm constantly challenged because I'm working in multiple industries now, which I never thought I would be doing. Whether it's software or retail or insurance, staffing, but yeah, I really, one of the most powerful books I will also tell you that also affected me on this journey was the book called The Surrender Experiment. A little spiritual out there, not for everybody, but for me, the word surrender helped me kind of slow down to realize, hey, dude, you've done pretty well so far in life. Just continue to lean in on these habits that have helped you on this journey. Don't worry about outcome. Don't worry about what things you can't control. Just worry about, you believe in yourself, where it is there. Believe in yourself and focus on being curious, present, humble, coachable, vulnerable to learn each and every day. And then stuff just started. And then serving others also, Richard. And then next thing you know, just opportunities started popping up. I'm like, where'd that come from? How'd they hear about me? Do this, that.
Exactly.
So
it's that positive reinforcement, man. When you have positive, that magnetic enforcement is way better than negative. I always tell people, man, when you have that smile and that vibrant, man, you can just bring people in. Mm-hmm. So now the book. So I got to tell you, chapter 1 just caught me right off, man, because I'm all about this. Follow the golden rule, man. I mean, that right there, let's just deep dive into that because that's what it's all about, man. Go for it.
Yeah, I think, if I, as quarterback, and if I enter the huddle with negativity, or if I enter the huddle like, oh, dude, we're never going to make this play, 3rd and 4, that play sucks. Coach doesn't know what he's talking about. Versus, man, this is the best play called ever. Or if I walked into my, the K-Force offices, if I'm bringing energy, I'm inspiring people to be their best. No matter what's going on in my life, I might ask for help. Hey guys, Dad, I'm having a tough day, but let's go have some great, let's prep, let's be prepared. Maybe I'm bringing coffee in for people. Maybe I'm complimenting somebody, which just takes appreciation, doesn't need recognition, just being nice. And being nice will never go out of style. It'll never be replaced by AI.
Never.
The feeling that this is what, the old Maya Angelou, she says, it's not what you said, why you said it, but how do you make people feel? Changes everything. And that's something I always focused on. And I studied people who are successful over time because, success leaves clues. History leaves clues. I wrote about a guy named Orison Swett Martin who started Success Magazine. Success is still going to this day.
I love that magazine, man. It's so good.
1897, he started it. He had over 500,000 subscribers. One of the biggest reasons he said it was successful because he treated people well. People wanted to be around him.
That's what it's all about, man. Okay, so there's a part here we got to talk about real quick here before I forget. The Karate Kid part. Come on. We're dating ourselves now. 1984, wax on, wax off. When I heard about that, I was like, so where did you come up with that? And it makes so much sense in the book when people read it. Why?
Because I wanted to let my authentic self shine. I wanted to be uncommon. I wanted the book not to be about sitting up on a pedestal. Let me tell you how great things were. I wanted to make it relatable. And so people were like, did he just talk about the Karate Kid? Or did he just talk about Cousin Eddie, Christmas Vacation? And I think it just being different. And I'm finding that even my wife said, you're going to put that in there. I'm like, yeah. If I'm going to ask people to be their authentic self, which we talk about later in the book, you got to be you. And I think the more we can be us, I think it drives better connection with people, and people want to connect with you.
Well, that movie, getting back to Karate Kid, I mean, Mr. Miyagi, the whole story is about, thriving and not, Mr. Miyagi summed it up. You're not there to hurt that person, you're to benefit yourself and believe in yourself. And that's what happened. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I watched that, man, I was ready to take karate the next day, and it wasn't about just knocking people over. It was inspiring.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the Cobra Kais, you're not going to be a Cobra Kai.
Oh, no. But now, you know what? When you watch, I'm going to ask you real quick. Have you watched the new series?
I have not. I should. I just swore I've not watched it.
It's pretty good. I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes you'll feel sorry for Johnny now. That's all I have to say. But okay, so let's just jump into some other stuff here. So always document and follow up. This is something I really want to bring in here because I think this is something that, Casey, I see this over and over when I go out in the field that people don't document stuff. They don't put in a CRM. And that's even recruiters and sales reps. They forget. Give the insight on this, man.
I was a CRM psycho. I remember there's a gentleman who I worked with a long time ago. He said, Casey, you're like a mother effing robot. You got your email up, you got your CRM up. And I was like, you're right. And I think it was, I became really, really disciplined through failure. Mm-hmm. Because I remember one time early in my career, I followed up with a manager. I was 2 weeks late because I didn't document correctly. And I called the manager and I said, hey, it's Casey. It was actually back in Hall Canyon. And he's like, oh, hey, thanks for following up, Case. I wanted to follow up for A, B, and C. He's like, oh, that position's not open anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, I went with another firm. You're supposed to call 2 weeks ago. You're 2 weeks late.
You kidding me? Ooh.
Pain is how we learn. And so I wrote about that. I talk about that because I want people to learn from my mistake back in the early in my career. And so to me, the CRM, I joke, it made me look like I went to Harvard. It allows me to document everything from their kids, their sports, where they went to college, what they like, what magazines did they read, what books did they like, when's their birthday, where they go on vacation, what industry, like anything I can think about to drive commonality, which leads to rapport, which leads to trust. And, most sellers or recruiters, we love to be the victim of our own story. I don't have time. I don't have time to document. I got to be on the phone. Really? Because last time I checked, we all get 1,440 minutes. No one gets more. No one gets less. It's your mindset that's wrong. You get all the time in the world. Just want you to say, I don't want to do it. Or I'm not making time. I'm not prioritizing time. When I was talking to people, I would have our software up and I would be literally talking to the client. I'm like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you might hear typing in the background. Just want to set your expectations, but I'm just taking notes, so that's okay. Yeah, you bet. Thank you. I then I document everything I'm hearing, whether it's right after the meeting, send them a meeting recap, which is something I share on page 82 and 83, which are 83, 84.
Yeah.
That changed everything for me. Showing the client I listened, showing the client I understood their pain, showing that I document and I have key next steps for what to do. Because then when you document and you're meeting the customer where they are, you're taking their advice, then it makes your next call so much easier. Because most salespeople love to say, "Hey, Richard, it's Casey with ABC Company. I'm just calling to check in, waste your time because I'm not sure what else to talk about." Versus, "Hey, it's Casey with ABC Company. I know we spoke back on April 3rd. You told me to call you on May 4th regarding A, B, and C. Is now a good time?" I think just that talk track alone will differentiate you.
100%. And this check-in stuff, I got to tell you, man, I see this all the time. Because once I get a contract, you're sitting there at the desk and you have these other people calling in from staffing firms, just checking in. And then they get off the phone and say, that dude or that girl hasn't called me in 6 months. Checking in, 3 seconds off the phone. And then they bring a swag bag in. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And even like for a recruiter, like think about when you have say contractor consultant starts and maybe they're an agile product owner, they're leading the Scrum team and maybe instead of, hey, Susie, I'm calling to see how your project's going. Hey, Susie, I'm calling to follow up to see how our velocity is going. I know when we started on this project, that was the biggest reason you got hired is really to increase velocity, make it better for da-da-da-da. Tell me how you and the team are doing. How's our points per sprint moving up? How are our teams doing? How are the pods doing? Like show that you understand what they're doing because you documented it and you're asking better questions is gonna help you elevate how they view you. Probably will create more opportunity for you. Maybe you'll get more referrals because most people don't want to do that. They want to do the easy way. They want to just check in and be transactional, which is exactly the opposite of what I wrote about.
100%. Okay, let's step back real quick here because I want to see, okay, so the sales reps gets there, get ready for their meeting. They go in, most of them are unprepared. I hate to say it, you know what I mean? And they don't listen. So that's in your book too. I think it's in chapter 2 here. It basically says,
3,
hear customers out, listen to them. I mean, so how do you tell sales reps to listen and keep it shut?
So I have a little trick I teach people. It's called the 3-tap rule. So I'll ask it, Richard, tell me, do you hear something? Did you hear that? Of course you didn't. No one did. I tapped my finger 3 times. So when I ask questions, I ask one question, not 2, meaning, hey, Richard, how's your day? What's going on? What are you up to? Well, I just asked you 3 questions versus, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, tell me 2 things that have you excited about your job right now. 1, 2, 3. Create space. Silence is your friend. It's a secret weapon. If you ask a question that's a good question, you made them think, shut the F up. Let them think. Let it sit in, right? And so when we hearing is I ask a question, I look down at my phone.
Yeah.
I talk about something totally different. I get my notification went off. Wait, now what'd you say? But listening requires me to, one, it improves my documentation skills. It allows me to say what I call 2nd and 3rd level questions based on a framework I follow and teach called TED, Tell Me, Explain, Describe. And so when I ask these great questions and someone gives me an answer, most sellers go on to the next thing. What I like to teach is tell me more about that. Describe what that would be important to you. Explain the impact of that problem. Tell me how solving that problem would positively impact you and your team. So it's like you have to be so intentional about listening. And when you look them in the eye and you make them feel like the most important person in the world, which sounds simple, most people don't do it, you're going to differentiate the shit out of yourself.
100%. And you're engaging them. And I think that's a lot. What you just did right there, you're engaging. If I'm just saying, hey, do you need staffing or this? I'm not engaging at all. I'm just telling you, and that's it. And they're like out the door. They're totally zoned out. They're ready for their next call or goodbye. Yeah. So how do you train sales reps? Case in your book, it explains that. But so I'm sure when you go into business and stuff like that, a lot of stuff is wrong, right off the bat. It's about numbers and all that. How do you break it down and say, this is what you got to do?
I don't go in there because I think if I go in telling them what the problem is, I think then I have what's called smartest in the room syndrome, which I don't want. And a lot of leaders I work with have that.
Okay.
Most leaders lead with the solution. They don't lead with questions, which I think curiosity is a gap I see in a lot of companies I consult with. They don't. And when there's not curiosity inside of a company, then fear sets in. Fear loves to hide, which leads to complacency. Then complacency likes to hide. And then these bad habits starts happening. And then all of a sudden our culture starts rocking. And all of a sudden now we're getting pressure. Now we're trying to get deals to end the quarter. And now we're just like everybody else. But when we slow down to go fast, which is, a cliche, but it's so true. And so many of my clients I'm working with are realizing the value in this is slow down. Let's follow a sales process. Let's make sure when we call play in the huddle, we know exactly what we're doing. If we're going to go qualify a new position or new set up a project with a company, let's take 10 minutes before and slow down to ask questions. Hey, what questions do you have? What questions are you going to ask? Okay, are we aligned with? Yep, let's go and ready to go. One question I like to teach is one I start, whether it's in a meeting or it's with internal, external. It could be like, describe what would be an ideal outcome for us in the time we have today, Mr. Customer. Don't lead with your agenda. Lead with what they want to talk about. Meet them where they are. Like one, I'll share a listening exercise that I love doing. It's a smaller workshop, and leaders, feel free to steal this if you want. But it's you. So imagine if you and I were sitting in front of each other like we are now, and we timed it for a minute. And my job is to tell you about something that I'm really, really excited about, something I'm passionate about. Maybe I'm going to talk about my kids, or I'm going to talk about something. And your job is to look distracted, not interested, busy, and I got to keep going for a minute, and then we're going to stop. And then the moderator will say, Casey, how'd that feel? It felt horrible. The shark wasn't listening to me.
No, I'm on my cell phone texting.
Yeah. But I ask people, I go, but how often does that happen in our everyday life? How often does it happen when your wife or your spouse or your friends talking to you and you're like looking down, or your company or your team or whatever it may be, and we get distracted?
Yeah.
The answer, it's all the time. Right. And so now we're going to redo this exercise. Now, Richard, your job is to make Casey feel like the most important person in the world. You're going to say, hey, hold on, let me put this down. Casey, yeah, go ahead. Tell me what you got going. Oh, wow. They did that. Oh, how was that? Oh, that was so cool. And make me feel like the most important person, and keep asking second, third level questions based on the information I'm sharing with you. And the trick is when I moderate these little workshops, I tell them, you have a minute to gather as much information as you can, Richard, to learn about what Casey's talking about. Mm-hmm. But I don't let the timer, I let it go. Okay. And you can feel the energy in the room. Everyone's getting excited, talking, and we're learning, there's laughing. And at about the 4 or 5 minute mark, I'll be like, all right, guys, the minute's up. How'd that feel? Oh, it's amazing. I go, isn't it amazing how much you captured in a minute? They're like, oh my God. Yeah. I go, well, you actually talked for 5 minutes. You didn't realize it.
Lots of time. I love it.
So like those are how that's just one small example how I do it. But another way is most companies, I think if you ask them like, hey, what problems do you solve? How do you solve them differently or better? Most companies can't answer that. Most companies go in and they think, well, I got to tell them what we do. I got to get my script, but there's no consistency, a message. So that tends to be a gap too.
Well, here's one I love. And you said this straight up, ditch the ego. Every time we go in, best staffing firm, best business, we're the best. That's leaving at the door, right? I mean, we are. Everybody's the number one badass, right? It's like we can solve everything, which we probably can. Of course we can, So how do you tell people to ditch that ego? It's nice to have that swag a little bit, but, they always, I think when people go in, Case, you may agree on this, is like they just talk about themselves. I'm the best sales rep. I do this. We do everything great. Mm-hmm. Where's the bad stuff?
My college football coach, shout out to Bo Baldwin, who's now the quarterback coach up at Calgary in the CFL. He said, Casey, if you have to tell me how good you are, you're not that good. When you're great, I'll tell you.
Ooh.
And that hit home. Mm-hmm. I think I've had so many experiences in life where life's humbled me, whether it's, back in college in my junior year, I was leading the league in passing. I come up the next game, I played like 4 or 5 games in the season. I had a horrible first half. He benches me during the game, leading the league in passing. And he benched me. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you're playing like shit. Sit, get your stuff together. You'll be ready in the second half. I'm like, I've been a part of staffing deals where you staff up 100 people, you get the phone call, you got to lay off 80. What? These moments of like, it can change like that. So I always feel like you might as well stay humble. Life's going to humble you anyway. Yes. And no one likes working with a-holes. Oh, and you see it, you feel it. Yes. And you're right. When people want to come in and tell about them, like, who cares? The only way you know you're best if your customers are saying you're the best. And when they say that, hey, thanks for the nice comment. Thanks for the nice feedback. Tell me 2 things I can do differently or better to make your experience even that much better. if you're always seeking feedback, if you're always being coachable, if you're always like staying in a growth mindset versus fixed, and because no one stays in growth forever, we're kind of going back and forth. But I think the way we stay more growth is by being curious and constantly asking for feedback.
Feedback all the time. And you know what I always say? If you win like an award or something like that, I always say on my end, I thank everybody because we won the award together, whoever is around me. It's not my award, just like the Heisman or anything like that. Yeah, it's great they did all that, but there's blockers, there's everything else. Dude, you're just not doing it yourself, So I always say at the end of the day, praise everybody around you.
That was one. That's what I actually look forward to the most when we go on our President's Clubs trips is thanking, whether it's, the person who's like the second, and a person collecting bills or someone, a tech support person.
Yeah.
Like what? Tech support? I used to call tech support sometimes, Richard, and just, all right, hey, it's Casey and Bellevue. What's going on? What's your issue? Nothing. Well, what do you mean nothing? Well, then why are you calling? I just want to say, hey, thanks. My computer's working great today and systems are working great. I just want to call to say thanks. What? Shake it up. Now that his name was Eric. I still remember this dude. He'd be like, Jacox, what are you doing? I'm like, I know, but I want to just, all your calls are the world's ending. You guys suck. My computer's working. The system's down. I just want to call to bring some positivity your way. Uncommon, right? It's things like that. Like it's fun for me to, and I think that's maybe back to quarterback again. It's like, you try to get your offensive lineman's name in the paper.
Yeah.
Things like that. It just, I don't know. Those things are just how I was raised, how I was coached. And I took those same lessons into the business world.
Dude, it's so true. And I'm just, a ditto just like that too myself. And you know what I think the sales rep should do in the staffing industry is praise the recruiters. They're the front line. Do you know that? Or the sourcer. And I never see this. I'm telling you, Case, I've maybe one or twice. They slap here's the job order, goodbye, walk away. And then did you feel it? There's that argument. I don't know if you see it on your end, but I never see the sales rep praise the recruiter, which you should.
Yeah. Well, I think most staffing firms, it's, the recruiters send the account manager the resumes and they're in charge. But I'm like, when did you become a software developer? How do you know it's a great candidate?
Exactly.
When did you become the expert? Instead, what I did that I think that helped me immensely, I would exactly what you just said. I would, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you got to talk to Richard. He is one of the best recruiters in Seattle. He knows the Java market so well. And like, I don't want to get in the way. I'm going to have you work directly with Richard. I'm going to be CC'd on all the emails. I'm going to be part of the process. I'm going to help behind the scenes, but I want you to work directly with my teammate because he knows this stuff really, really well. Made it about, in the end, one of my favorite pieces of advice someone gave me. They said, Casey, do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want? Right? You don't get both. I'm like, well, I want to get what I want.
Yeah.
Right? Which says my ego's not in the way. Which is getting what I want means I'm going to make you look smart and make the client happy because they get to work with someone who's really, really good. I don't need to be right. I don't need to be the one doing it. In the end, it just is a much more easy way. And once I let that go and I bought into that, that's when my career really started taking off.
Dude, man, this is incredible stuff. So the one thing, okay, so this is what everybody, success. Mm-hmm. I always say it's minutes away, man. It takes time. So explain this like you did in your book about like, dude, people want stuff they think successful is like overnight. That doesn't happen overnight. You know that. We're not Hall of Famers overnight.
Mm-mm. Well, I think, and so Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hour rule and outliers, and I think there's a lot of companies have worked with recently that I think, during COVID, certain industries, it was just like, you could just breathe and pick up a job order. It was easy. And so you get these false habits of success, false sense of reality of success. And so now so many companies I'm working with, they forgot how to sell. They forgot how to build relationships with people. And if it happens really, really quick, you're either really, really lucky or it's not meant to last. So to me, I think what I like to remind myself is if anything built to stand, it's going to take time, right? If you don't want a house, you don't want to fly an airplane that was built in 3 hours. I want to fly an airplane that's built for a year and that's every screw's tight, right? And so I think one word I like to help people with is grace. Give yourself grace, right? Don't worry about being the best. Worry about being your best. That's all we can do. That's all you got. And so if you're constantly being coachable, you're constantly being curious, you're asking for feedback, you're practicing. I know that salespeople and recruiters, we don't like to practice. We like to wing it and practice on our clients. Don't be like that. Practice. Make time to practice each and every week. Well, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Practice asking better questions. Practice asking, because you do those things behind the scenes, you're going to have more success quicker versus you just winging it and checking in, being transactional like you and I have been talking about. But yeah, man, it takes time, and you got to just lean in on that and trust the process.
It does. And then the personal life. I mean, this before we wrap things up, that personal life beyond selling. I love that chapter a little bit. So it's like, seriously, our personal life affects everything we do in our professional life too. And people don't think that. They think they can turn one off and one on. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, I'm the same. I would like to think, and people have said this to me, so I appreciate this, is the same person in and out of work. I'm always going to show up who I am. Sometimes it's goofy. Sometimes I'm intense. And that's why when in the front of the book, it says, 6 common sense life lessons to win a business and life. Because in the end, we're all selling. Everybody's selling. Whether, hey, honey, I want to go to Mexican. Oh, I want sushi. Someone's going to win that deal.
Yeah.
Right. And, when my dad, rest in peace, my pops passed away December 29th, 2021, and he had a bunch of health stuff, really came down to dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote about him in the end. I said, I can either win the relationship with my dad, not the dementia. So it's about a mindset shift of win the, not the. And so I had to meet my dad where he was and was getting to character, and whether he thought, my son was me, or these, when you get dementia, your mind kind of goes bonkers. And so, whether it's, I joked about, win the relationship with my wife, not the boat launch, so it's like, instead of arguing about being the best person backing the boat down and yelling at her and freaking out, it's like, I joked about that. There's so many life lessons of just when you show up on time, you're setting expectations, you be a great listener, you document what you hear. It's not about you. It's like, yeah, this helps in selling, but in the end, every business has to and must build great relationships. And whether it's with our kids, our spouse, the coaches we work with, it doesn't matter what they are. Relationship building is never going to get replaced by AI. Relationship, being nice is never going to get replaced by AI. All the things I wrote about, I don't believe are going to get, maybe they might be AI and ChatGPT might help, but the feeling that we can give each other as humans with that connection will never get replaced.
Never. And since post-pandemic, I think it's actually the relationship built closer now. You know what I mean? It's more about that hug and handshake because we were so far away for that 1 year we won't ever talk about again. Last thing I had to wrap up, it's a current event thing, is the non-competes. Big into sales now with the non-competes. I'm going to tell you, for the sales reps now, they're going to have a more self-worth now because it's like you said, building that relationship. The company doesn't build the relationship. It's the person. What's your take on the non-compete, man?
Yeah, you hope. I think it's nice that people can have a little bit more flexibility, but you hope that there's still some trust that, hey, I'm here we're going to, give each other the benefit of the doubt. I have positive intent to stay here as long as I can. I want to take care of people, but in the end, I hate to say it, but sometimes there's only one person looking out after you, and it's yourself.
Yep.
And so I think it's an interesting thing is the non-compete rules continue to change and evolve. But I think it's nice having flexibility as, in individuals, because, there's think about in sports right now and the NIL deals. And, I think sometimes it's gone too far that way. You don't want to be job, I love, for me, I stayed at a company for almost 20 years. I was very loyal, but I think right now, this NIL, what's next for me culture, you can kind of bounce around. I think there is something to say though, about staying in a place for a while, but, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to be upfront with you. I don't like the NIL deal. I think that gives you, if you don't get to start, we love football, you just bounce somewhere else. So in life, it's saying, well, you know what? I don't get that position I wanted. I'm just going to quit and go somewhere else. I think the biggest way to do it, if you want to go in the NIL and you want to be in a transfer portal, you sit 1 year out. You lose 1 year. Why go to a winning team?
I just don't like, I don't like about the portal is if you're a starter at a starter at college, well, why would you go start? You're already starting. You're already winning. Yeah. But it's encouraged. It's allowed. I think unfortunately the high school athletes are getting robbed of opportunity because coaches now are recruiting in the portal first versus high school kids. So.
And what's funny is with sports, it trickles down to our business world too. We know that. 100%. You know what I mean? It's all that mindset. You see what the pros do, the college, the pros, even the pros. I'm going to tell you, this year is one of the craziest years ever. People just getting traded right and left. You've probably never seen it like this before. And now in businesses, it's going to be the same way. It's I
know. Maybe we can get an NIL deal in staffing.
Hey, I thought about that, man. Would that be good? Oh boy. Okay, so we got to talk about your podcast before we wrap things up. I want to give a plug to that, the QB podcast or Dadcast. I'm sorry, QB
That's right,
Dadcast.
yeah.
How'd you come up with this, man?
So when I started the podcast in 2020, I knew there was a lot of stuff for moms out there, but I didn't see a lot of stuff for dads. And, you know, in the spirit of vulnerability, humility, and curiosity, those are great skill sets that we as dads can use to help our kids be the best version of them and help them find things that they want to do. And I realized that I was like, that'd be kind of fun. So I kind of a play on words. I played quarterback. Your quarterback's leader of the team. A dad could be a leader of the house, but doesn't always, but the mom might be the general manager. You know, roles might change. That's how, what if we like think about a way to like interview dads, no matter what job you have, because in the end, our kids don't give two shits about what I do. It's like, hey, can I go to Johnny's house? Can I go to Rachel's house? Hey, can you pick me up after school? Hey, can I go to camp? Like our as men, sometimes our ego gets in the way. Like, I'm a CEO of this company. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? So what? My buddy's a cop. Your buddy's this guy's a custodian. Works a golf pro. Doesn't matter. Like, and so my goal of these episodes was to bring a level of humanity and realness that how can we learn from other dads each and every week? How are they raised? What were the values? How are we learning about these values? How are we teaching our kids these values? And how can we learn from other dads to become a better leader of our own home? And, you know, 250 episodes later, your boy, John Ruffini's episode went live today.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yep. A great episode. You know, he talked about Quest for Alex.
Yes.
The journey of adoption in Chile. Powerful story, powerful book. I mean, if anybody don't know him, I'm sure they do because they follow you, but check it out. He's a stud. He's a great just a really, really good episode. And so I get free therapy out of every episode though, selfishly.
It is. Isn't it great? And real quick on John, most humble guy ever. Am I right, Case? What we talked about today, he is the example of a humble person, man.
He's a humble dude. He's a Maryland Terp. He's a former basketball referee, and he's a stud at Health Trust.
Oh, man, big time there, buddy. Okay, so where can people find you at, man? You're everywhere. Here we go. Look at the speaking author, executive coaching podcast. Dude, when do you have time to be a dad?
You know, well, that was pretty cool. He's a technology guy. The best way to find me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Best way, you know, they can contact me there. I love connecting with people. I always ask like if anything I can do to help people. I love making connections with people. I call it a boomerang mindset, and I don't keep score. I love finding ways to connect with people. My website's caseyjacox.com. And how I make time for being a dad, it's balance, right? Some people don't believe in that. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm choosing where and when to work with people. And I'm prioritizing family right now over work. Not because I don't want to help people, I do, but to me at this stage of life, I got 3 months left before my son goes off to college, and I will never regret not doing things with him. I will never. Now, once my kids get out of high school, maybe I'll go ramp it back up a bit. But I'm very busy. I have many clients I'm working with on a coaching perspective. But to me, it's like I'm at this like very level, present mindset of family first, work second, and it's so rewarding.
Dude, man, I love it, man. Thank you so much for coming on. If you guys get a chance, subscribe to the channel, Staffy Shark channel. We have people like Casey in here all the time, man, for inspiration and everything else, buddy. But I tell you what, man, I'm going to tell you, man, you're one of the most humble dudes I ever met, man. Seriously, man, you're keeping it real, buddy. You know what? All this glory success doesn't get to your head. And that's what I love, man, because in the day, we're all equal, man, and we can all make other people thrive. That's the whole thing, man.
Grateful to have been invited. And grateful to have met you. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to spend some time with you today.
Dude, you're part of the Shark family, man. So, you know, you can't get rid of me, man. You're part of our ocean of opportunity for life.
Well, I like it.
All right, guys. Well, that's another wrap on another chapter of Behind the Book. We'll see you soon. Take care.